But first, I think they're despicable. That from a dissatisfied Air New Zealand customer, and Steve Clark is not alone. Other customers are outraged the airline is holding on to their money after Covid-19 basically grounded their flights. Money some of them now really need to make ends meet. Hundreds of Air New Zealand flights have been cancelled or moved, and increased border restrictions and alert levels due to the pandemic mean some travellers can't even get to their takeoff point. But a number of Air New Zealand customers say the airline is refusing to give their money back. Instead, they're being offered credits they may never get to use. And Ros, Steve and Deborah say that's bad form from a company that's benefited from $70 million in wage subsidies and a government loan of up to $900 million.
So I'm Ros. I'm a New Zealand citizen, but I live in Tasmania. And I was going to New Zealand from Tasmania actually on the 9th of April, which is obviously gone, with a different airline. And then when I got to New Zealand, I was flying from Auckland to Tonga on the 24th of April to meet my sister, who's working for Volunteer Service Abroad in Tonga. So I was flying from Auckland to Tonga. I was going to be in Tonga for a week and then fly back to Auckland, then back to Tasmania.
Hi, I'm Steve Clark, and I had 3 tickets to, my family had 3 tickets to LA on the 25th, to go on the 25th of the 5th.
With Air New Zealand?
Yeah, with Air New Zealand, yeah.
I'm Deborah. We were due to fly on the 5th of June to Perth. So we live in Picton. We were going to fly from Blenheim to Auckland and then Auckland to Perth.
With Air New Zealand?
With Air New Zealand. We were headed there specifically to do a cruise that was to leave from Perth on the 8th of June. So we thought we'd have a few days to look around in Perth before the cruise. And then, of course, the cruise was cancelled because of COVID-19. And, of course, our trip via air has been cancelled too, because you can't fly in out of anywhere and you can't land anywhere.
How much were your tickets with Air New Zealand?
The New Zealand component from Auckland to Tonga is just under $800.
$2,000.
$2,206 to be exact.
Okay, so what have you been told about those flights? Can you get your money back?
Tasmania had shut our borders, so I couldn't get out of Tasmania. That was my big issue, even if the flights were still operating, which Air New Zealand wrote back and said, well, our flights haven't been cancelled. You can still go to Tonga. Therefore, the flight isn't cancelled. We can't do anything for you. That was the first email I had from them. And I said, well, even if I can even if I could get there, even if I could swim, I can't get there because our borders are closed. I then received 2 days later an email saying that those flights had been cancelled and they were offering me a credit note for a month later, for May. I think it was May 29th from memory. And I wrote back and said, well, that's no good to me. I'm actually going over for a birthday party, a 65th birthday party, which I was, before I went to Tonga, and I would prefer a cash refund. And they wrote back and said, please call this number. I've called that number 3 times. There's a 1-800 number, and then there's also a 13, like a 6-digit number. I've rung both of them, and each time I've spoken to somebody who's told me, sorry, we can't help you, we are only offering credit notes. My comment was, well, the credit note does me no good because the birthday party, the 65th that I'm going over for, will be no longer. And my sister has been repatriated from Tonga, so flying to Tonga is of no use to me at all.
So they've indicated, they've said that they're just going to give you a credit on your airfares, but they're not really clear on what you can use your credit for. I've heard other people saying that you can only use your credit for for those where you are going. You can't use it for domestic flight around New Zealand, so I'm not really sure. But 100% they've said that you will not get a refund.
We got an email from them to say it's been cancelled. And then I was just actually looking online to try and retrieve our booking. And it says we are holding your booking in credit and are working on functionality to enable you to rebook online. So I can't even get into that booking to see. And I've also just logged into our Air New Zealand AirPoints page, and there's no record of that flight anywhere. So we haven't actually been sent an email to say that they're holding it in credit or how it can be used, nothing. And I have been messaging Air New Zealand to try and get that information, and they just don't even answer the messages.
So how would you describe the communication you've had with them?
They've been quite difficult. I mean, obviously, the people on the end of the telephone, it's not their fault, but they just sing the party song. They just say, "I'm sorry, this is our what do they say? This is our procedure, and we can't do anything about it." And I said, "Well, these are exceptional circumstances. Your procedure really should then take into account, people's exceptional circumstances." I also quoted something called the frustrated contract. Which is, I don't know if you know about that, but that means that if a contract is broken by both parties through no ability of them to change it, legally you are entitled to a refund.
I feel like that they're trying to portray this image that they love us, they're part of the New Zealand family, we're all in this together. They've taken billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars from the government in subsidies as far as, the employee subsidy plus money the government's put into them to keep them going. And yet they're holding, I understand, maybe almost $1 billion of Kiwis' money when they most need it to help them, buy food, pay rent, and basically living expenses from day to day. They're using, working Kiwis' money to keep their business afloat.
So you need...
I think that they're being despicable. We're all affected, as far as work goes. And, we need it back to pay for everyday living expenses. And I'm not a shareholder of Air New Zealand, and I don't see why I should have to have money, give them a free loan, basically, to keep them afloat. I mean, if they're that financially strapped, perhaps they should go back to their shareholders who've been reaping the benefits for many years from, all the profits, rather than tapping mums and dads and, average Kiwis at a time when they most need their money back.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Every time I've rung the 0800 numbers to try and sort out, what we can do with this credit, we get told a different thing. So we've been told that we can use it we have to use it in the next 12 months from the time the booking was made. So our booking was made in February. So that message said that we needed to use it by the February next year, which we said to them, well, that's not reasonable because we don't even know if international travel will be available by then, and we probably won't be in a position to be able to afford to fly internationally in that time frame. And then they said you have to use that flight for the same route again. So I said, what? So we have to fly from Blenheim to Auckland and then Auckland to Perth? That's the only way we can redeem that credit? Which they said yes. So then we asked, well, can we hold that value of that credit to use it domestically once domestic travel is allowed around New Zealand? And they said, no, you can't. You can only use it for the international flight that you had booked. We were doing this cruise as a little bit of a treat before I had my next two big surgeries, which were due to happen sort of, July, August. But of course they're on hold because of Covid-19 and the hospitals are not operating. And so I don't know when my surgery is going to happen, but it will be within the next 12 months. And both surgeries will probably be at least 6 to 8 months apart. So therefore travel for me is just not going to be an option,
To sum it up, how do you feel about Air New Zealand right now and the way you're being treated?
Look, I understand people are hurting all over the place, but they've made good profits over the years. Air New Zealand's always been very much in the black, haven't they? Well, so they've boasted. We take the good and the bad times. With my work, I'm suffering too. I can't work at the moment. $800 in the great scheme of things is not a lot of money, but there is a principle as well.
They're all very good, all good at going on to Instagram and Facebook and putting all this rhetoric up about how they love us and all the rest of it. We're all in this together. But the reality is that they don't. It's all about money. It's all about profits. It's all about their survival, and they don't care one little bit about the average New Zealander who's lost millions, hundreds of millions of dollars potentially with air tickets. And, the thing is that it wasn't as though that us Kiwis decided, oh, we're not going to fly because there's a coronavirus. No, they decided to cancel all these international flights for monetary reasons and because obviously, you can't travel anyway. And so we didn't, it wasn't as though that we cancelled our flight and said we didn't want to go. They cancelled the flight on us. For whatever reason, they still cancelled the flight. They downsized their business so that the international flight was no longer available. So I don't see why we shouldn't be able to get our money back.
Disgusted, to be honest. Yeah. We sort of feel that they should, in this circumstance, they should be refunding people's money if they need the money. And, we need the money because finances are tight, we can't travel, we're not in a situation we won't even be in a situation, even if I wasn't having the surgeries, because we won't even be able to afford an international holiday. That's the last thing that will be on our list of being able to afford in the next 12 months or even probably in the next 2 years.
And that was Air New Zealand customers Roz, Steve and Deborah, who all want refunds for their flights. Air New Zealand declined to be interviewed, but in a statement says it's crediting or refunding customer tickets according to the fare bought and the country it was bought in. It says it's helping customers rebook through until June 30th. Air New Zealand has extended credits accrued due to Covid-19 changes, and people will now have until the 30th of June 2021 to book and then a further 12 months to travel, the airline says. It says it's received great feedback on its flight credit option and 240,000 people have opted to put their flights into credit.